Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Escape the J Curve. This is your host, Rohan Nag. And today I publish the third part of my interview with Jishnu Dasgupta. And let me be honest, man, I was just listening to the interview and probably this is one of the best interviews I've done till date. It's so much value, it's full of golden nuggets, and we go into deep topics in this episode like the dark side of marketing, how to train habits like problem solving, taking on more responsibility, lateral thinking. Before you actually think of becoming an entrepreneur, these skills are very necessary, and also a lot of good book recommendations. So tune in, listen to this episode. It's full of value. Thank you so much.
Now, moving on from there, so I ranked myself, I did all this, and it was an existential crisis because it's basically like, I was like, what's the point? Like all the, that's what you have. Like when you first, think to when you're, I'm sure that you also, when your university degree wasn't marketing, maybe. I don't think it was it?
No.
Yeah, so if you remember to the time you first discovered marketing, it was like simultaneously an amazing and a depressing experience, right?
Yeah,
because you're like, wow, this is
what
exactly. It's this conflicting emotion when you start seeing that, oh my god, like this is so terrible. It's amazing, but it's terrible. Like, oh my god, like this, I could seriously leverage this. Like there's a part of you that's very Machiavellian that starts loving it. You're like, oh my god, this feels so, this is going to be, look at all this shit that I can get if I learn this. And there's a part of you, like the ethical part, that is like, oh god, like it's dying inside, and I think that I had that moment, and that's when I decided that at least for the time being, I'm gonna leave the jazz guitar workshop project alone, because I had to ask myself then, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to like make this mass consumable, like 300 videos kind of content? Am I going to do this? Because you have to make that decision, like I think when you do a project, you have to decide at which point of time you're going to let go of it. I mean, when you let go of it, I think it's important to never say that, oh, it's because this isn't popular and all that. Take full responsibility for it. So I kind of evaluated this project and I said, okay, this jazz guitar thing, I'm not willing to do this kind of content that I need to do. Whether it's like these 30-second Instagram clips or all this, dopamine addict shit that people have to do, right? And I was like, I don't think I want to do this, because that's not why I started playing guitar. It's like, and then you kind of look back and you think, and really you clarify your own motivations. Is what does it do for me? Why am I doing this? And I realized that I enjoy playing guitar because I enjoy playing guitar. It's a very like it's a recursive kind of thing. In fact, all this other shit actually makes me enjoy it less. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to not make content, but I'm going to make exactly the kind of content that I want to make. Yeah. And I'm going to be okay with the fact that that's not really going to bring in like, much financial incentive, right? I'm going to be okay with it. I think, and that was a decision that I think at every stage you kind of have to figure out what that decision is. And that's the decision I made. And then I realized that, hey, you know what? I learned this amazing skill set along the way, which is I learned how to be a really good marketer. What do I do with this? And the natural realization you would have from that is, okay, so jazz is almost like my charity project in a sense.
Where or something that nourishes your soul and not
nourishes my soul, and something financially that I put more into it than I get out of it, essentially. So it's like a charity, essentially. There's a jazz charity that I've set up in my head. Okay, so so I realized, okay, I'm gonna learn. This is amazing, and people do need this service. It's clear that marketing is not just some add-on service that a business needs. It's something that's kind of fundamental to how like any business operates. It's not some add-on like, okay, let's get the let's get the website made and let's do some marketing. That's how most businesses think about it, right? But it's like so fundamental to how a business operates. So that's the decision I made was, okay, I'm going to learn how to be a really good marketer. And jazz, I'm going to use that as, I'm going to make that into what it was before, which is basically, it's my like meditative space. And over time, I'm slowly going to basically take whatever I learned from marketing and start applying it to jazz, and see how I can maybe promote better content, better quality content, especially even in the music space.
Sure.
So since then, I've been basically working in marketing. I've developed my marketing chops essentially for the last 1.5 years, I would say. And I'm at a point right now, at the last project I did, I ranked somebody, I ranked an architecture company for like, I think 22 to 30 different keywords at a city level, national level keywords.
Wow.
So yeah. So now, because for me, like as I said, I have a fundamental lack of entitlement. I need to see that what I'm doing is producing results before I decide to go ahead and say I'm going to start a company or something.
Okay. Okay.
I need a lot of like, and that's something we could actually discuss, because I think one of the problems right now is, ever since I don't want to bang on like Gary Vaynerchuk, because I think he's awesome. He's really amazing. But what happens is, because he's so charismatic, you have all these people who watch that kind of content, or you see those kind of role models, and they get into this almost like this temporary frenzy of wanting to be an entrepreneur, because it feels really sexy and all these things. And the first thing that they do is they make like an Instagram channel and whatever. But the problem is, that has nothing to do with running a business. That has nothing to do with actually doing your own thing. It's like kind of making that shift from being employed to doing your own thing is just a very, very slow, gradual, and very silent process. It's a silent process. If people know that you're an entrepreneur, then you should have already been an entrepreneur for 5 years before people know about it. Because the first step is, okay, while you're doing your job, maintaining discipline, and also within your job, are you just like kind of doing the bare minimum to get by, or are you actually trying to act like an entrepreneur within your job, right? I think, where people have this mentality where, oh, it's just a day job. I think every day job that I've had, I've tried really hard to work well at the day job. I've never had this apathy, where you're like, oh, it's just a day job, let me just get by. The problem is, if you do that, like, you're cultivating that, you're training yourself to act like that,
For sure.
You're training yourself to act like. So even when your day job,
I was thinking about is, like, I think you have a lot of influence on a common friend. So he was saying this exact same thing that you're talking about. I think you know who I'm talking about. But
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I that makes sense. Yeah, because I think the way that you kind of conduct yourself in one area, it kind of bleeds through to the other areas. It's hard to compartmentalize. So if you're a piece of shit at your job, that behavior is going to kind of bleed through, and you're going to be a piece of shit when you try to start up your own thing. Because anything that you do repeatedly, you're building a habit. Habits are more important than personality. Personality isn't that important. Habits are more important, because you can, if you work at a company for 10 years and the only thing you've trained yourself to do habitually is like shirk work and try to cut corners, there's no way you're going to start a business. It doesn't matter how much passion you have. You're going to start the business, and the second things get difficult, you're going to revert back to your default behavior, which is shirking work and all those things that you were doing at your other job, right? So I think if the guys who are listening to this, I think you have a sizable audience of young guys who maybe have a job and want to make that shift to entrepreneurship. The first thing is, be very careful how you conduct yourself. Even if you're at a job, you want to act at that job. You want to act like an entrepreneur. And maybe, by the way, that might not help you at your job. That might not help you at your job, because I've gone in every job that I've had, like the jobs where I've enjoyed myself are the jobs where the guys I was working with, they allowed me to act like that. They were cool with me. But if you're working at a job where the person just wants you to be compliant, then that might not help you with your job. But you have an obligation to yourself to act like that. You have an obligation to act like that. So whether it helps you at your job or not, I would suggest start taking more responsibility in terms of at work. Even if you're working at another firm, you have to train these processes. For example, when something gets screwed up at the company you're working at, see if you can be the one who takes the initiative to solve it. See if you can be the problem solver rather than saying, why don't you just talk to this person instead? So because that's actually going to help you more than when you're actually doing your own thing. Because when you're doing your own thing, you have to take responsibility. That's a fundamental habit that you need to develop. So the transition, I think, from going in an employee kind of role to being an entrepreneur, I think it happens in those phases. The first thing is you realize that whether you're at a job or not, whether you're working in a company or not, it's up to you to train these habits like taking responsibility, habits like problem solving, habits like being the one who kind of takes the initiative on projects, habits like noticing what the status quo is and trying to change it if it's not optimal. And then you start applying those processes. Maybe start working freelance a little bit on the side. Do some kind of part-time thing. Do a part-time sales job. Do that for a few years. See how that works out. And you have to train these processes, because if you get into some people get into a business and they naturally have these inclinations, so it works out for them. Those are not the people who I'm guessing this podcast is meant for, because they already know all this stuff intuitively, right? So for people who kind of they really luck out, or either they luck out or they intuitively have the skills. I mean, obviously all this is stuff that they already know, but I'm kind of trying to address this to people who don't have that. And we've known so many guys who have amazing business ideas. You and me, we both known so many people who like that, who have amazing ideas. They're because they've gotten into this machinery, this corporate machinery for years and years, they're kind of unable to snap themselves out of it. And once they do, even if they do snap themselves out of it, it's so hard to kind of maintain the discipline. And I'm just trying to outline what the fundamental problems are. The fundamental problems have to do with the ritualized behavior that you've inculcated, and that you've installed in yourself over the years. And you have to kind of negate that. So if somebody who's listening to this, if you've been working for 3 years at a corporate and you want to start up your own business, but you've been kind of acting really irresponsibly at your corporate, the first thing you should fix is try to act better in your corporate that you're working in. Fix your behavior there first. You need to have evidence that the things that you do work, and you need to prove to yourself that you have the discipline to carry through with things, that before you kind of start your business or any of that. Starting your business is the last step. I feel.
Fantastic, Jishnu. And just to make a note, I think we have the longest podcast episode so far. We are more than an hour now.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
That's amazing, right? Yeah. So let's try to wrap it up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one thing that I like to ask my guest is if they have any book recommendation, something that they have read that they have completely changed their worldview and helped them grow. So do you have any book recommendations on that?
Well, I kind of, it's not a business book. It's a book called The Denial of Debt. It's by Ernest Becker.
Denial of Debt, or
The Denial of Debt. It's basically like a philosophy book from the 1950s, I believe. Wow. And it kind of talks about how people develop these life projects, and how it's basically driven by a fear of your own, an existential fear of mortality, and how to counteract that. You try to, some people do that by, let's say, having a family and having kids. Some people do that by kind of building something that will outlast them. Right. So it's a really great examination of of long-term human motivation, because I feel that there are two types of motivation. There's short-term motivation, which is like a feeling, which is something you feel motivated. Now that can be useful to get you kickstarted, but over time you need to kind of build a better game plan for yourself, because I'm 29 right now. So I know that I have to make sure that my energy levels and all these things stay sustainably high for years and years, especially because if you see how the business landscape is changing so fast, it's important to do that. It's essential to do that. And what you then realize is that you need to have built a structure of long-term motivation. So the structure of long-term motivation is essentially you carve out what has meaning to you and what doesn't have meaning to you, essentially. And then you carve out, okay, what are your boundaries and what are outside your boundaries and what are within them.
It's a trial and error process, would you say, like figuring
out?
Yeah.
It's not something that you make a plan and then you execute on it. Every business plan or every life plan is built to be destroyed essentially within the next 6 months. Because you've started business, you know what happens 6 months after you start a business. The business plan you made, you can just throw that into the fire, right? In most cases. So it's the same with, I think, with life in general, is that you're going to change these things, but then at least you know what it does when you change your focus to thinking about asking yourself these questions, regardless of what the answer is. The fact that you're asking yourself these questions, it kind of wakes you up. It makes you focus on different things. And the Denial of Debt is probably the best book on that subject, where again, it's the kind of book where it doesn't give you answers, because what happens when you read like a self-help book that gives you answers? You follow it for a while and then you fall off, because Socratic method is so much better. All you have to do is get somebody to kind of focus you on asking better questions, and then you can come up with the answers, which change over time, of course. But Denial of Debt is one I'd recommend. Well, there are a couple of other books. There's one book called Fuck Emotions, which I really like. That's a wonderful book, and I don't have to explain what it's about. But it's funny because as an artist, as somebody who's a musician, it kind of sounds weird to say like, "Oh, fuck your feelings" and all that.
Yeah, it does.
I'm saying that because I'm a very emotional person. Do you understand? There's somebody who's like a sociopath won't be saying that. But I think because for those of us who are emotionally driven, and hence are also more victim to the vicissitudes of like different emotional states, it's important to read stuff like that to be able to disassociate yourself. A lot of, I mean, for those of you who are not who are already who don't have a problem with kind of feeling overwhelmed or feeling down or all these things, that cool, you don't have to worry about it. But I think especially when you're especially when you're starting a business, I think the dominant emotion is one of just feeling lonely generally, and feeling a little isolated because
and also I felt this a lot, not knowing what to do, what's the next step, what's the best step, because you don't have a direction. None of your colleagues or friends or family, they don't know what to do. They have not been in this situation. So it's loneliness and not knowing what to do. Should I do this or should I do that? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And if you're lucky, then you have friends or family who don't know what to do. If you're unlucky, you have friends or family who will tell you what to do. And you'll generally be wrong. In most cases, it'll be wrong, right?
Yeah, no, I've had those people as well, but they have not ever started a business in their lives. So I generally discard those opinions. How does it matter? If you are a musician, then I could, fall into how you play your guitar chords. But if you are a barber, why are you trying to teach me about music?
Exactly.
I don't care about your opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true. There's a cautionary tale there also, because the way that business is changing right now, even if somebody a businessman or something, you have to be careful to see what kind of advice they give you, because they might be giving you advice that was amazing 20 years ago, but doesn't work as well now. So I think the main skill set these days to look out for is to see how good somebody is at pivoting and see how good they are at kind of learning new skill sets and things like that. Because the landscape, because things are changing really fast. Speed is the kind of the operative word there. Now, so regarding books, Fuck Emotions. I think it was Fuck Feelings or Fuck Emotions. I can't remember. But the book specifically is not what I'm talking about, but books in that nature to help you kind of disassociate from all the turmoil that you generally tend to go through when you're doing any kind of work like this, and keep even keeled. There's also a book called Hannibal and Me, which you've probably heard of, which is kind of a mix of an autobiography and a self-help book in a way. And that's also phenomenally good. And so it's really well written too. I think maybe these three I would pick for now. Just what comes to mind in the context of what we've been talking about.
Wow. So thanks, Jishnu. Thanks a lot. Like, it was a long episode and we went deep into pretty controversial and important topics that people need to hear about. There's lots of value in it, lots of gold nuggets, lots of tactics people can pick, and also long-term strategies that they can implement. So, which is not going to happen overnight, but they have to build it into a habit. So I think it's a very good episode for everybody listening in. Just before we leave, where can people get in touch with you? And if you can talk about your future project, or you want to talk about your current projects, how do you want people to reach out to you?
Well, regarding my future project, I'm actually launching my company in September, but I don't want to talk too much about it because it's like, again, just working on the back end. But it is a marketing company. It is basically a company that will be doing online PR.
Okay.
The way that works is, now it's not in the sense that digital marketing is a tactic, right?
Yep.
So for what I'm basically structuring my company out is because I kind of understand the tactics. And right now what I'm doing is I'm actually building out, I'm talking to guys who actually like business owners, and I'm asking them, okay, what are your specific endpoint needs, and I'm building a whole model where I'm taking different niches that I understand very well. Like I understand construction industry very, very well. So businesses that work in construction, businesses that work in entertainment. And what I'm doing is I'm building out like, okay, what do these people want? And how can we translate? Imagine like a marketing company. Let's say you were to avail the services of a marketing company, and instead of telling you that they'll do Facebook and they'll do LinkedIn, they'll tell you, okay, this is the ROI that you want. This is the outcome you want. Okay, fine, cool, let's do that.
Fantastic.
So that's basically what I'm aiming for. It's not going to be the digital marketing company that offers like these services. Rather, it's a company that offers outcomes. And I'm building that out now, so I can't talk too much about it. But you will be hearing about it soon. As of now, I mean, again, I'm a pretty private person. So if you want to get in touch with me, social media is actually not the best way because I don't check it that much. So you can actually contact me at JishnudG@gmail.com, JishnudG@gmail.com. And yeah, that's probably the best way to get in touch. I've been off social media for a while now, and it feels amazing. It's like a detox.
It is.
Yeah.
All right.
That's about it.
Thanks for doing this on a Sunday, Jishnu. I really appreciate it. It's a long episode with lots of value for people who are listening in.
I'm glad to be on here, man. I'm going to be following your podcast soon in the next few, over time too. I really love the roster of people that you have on here. I was checking out some of your prior interviews. I think you've got a really great thing going, and I'm very excited to see where it's going to go for you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Listen, thanks so much for listening to the episode. I really appreciate it. Now, if you think you have got any value out of this episode, please make sure to engage with the content. My podcast is available on all of the platforms like Spotify, like Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and it's also even available on YouTube. So if you got some value out of this content, please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment, or please download and share it with someone who would get value out of this. That's all I ask. Thank you so much.